Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Casey Cooley.
Hello, everybody.
And Cody Geiler.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, gentlemen? We got a lot to catch up on this episode of Inside the Force. We were planning on doing an episode right before Chapter 11 came out, which came out this past Friday, but didn't quite hit it up, which is actually really good because I think this is going to be a great discussion about the contrast between 10 and 11. So we got a lot to get to with that. We got to go over some releases that are coming out that are really that I'm really excited about. And then, of course, we're going to finish up with a little bit of some extended Mandalorian talk where we discuss the future of this season based on what we've got this past episode, which I think was a game changer. So first, let's rewind back a little bit, a couple weeks now. Chapter 10, The Passenger, coming off Chapter 9, which was the big, Cobb Vanth and Boba Fett return. Somewhat of a change in this episode. I'll start with you, Cody. Tell me what your first reaction was in watching The Passenger.
My first reaction was, honestly, I was a little bummed. It wasn't my favorite episode. There were some interesting parts for sure. Like, I like some of the alien vibes. They continue in a couple of the episodes. So they had, all those little eggs that Baby Yoda got into. But I felt like it was a really hard diversion from the first episode, which was so big and grand in scale, and that set up a little bit more of Din's journey with Baby Yoda to find Mandalorians. But I wasn't a huge fan of the frog lady, to be honest.
So you didn't mention one thing, though. You didn't mention what the big controversy was that this episode, which was Baby Yoda with the eggs.
The eggs, yeah. I mean, it didn't bother me as much as I've read online.
Yeah.
Because it was obviously played for humor and laughs, and it could go a lot of different ways. I mean, of course, frogs are in this frog species. I don't even actually know the name of it. They're sentient, right?
Yeah.
But I likened it to like we eat eggs for breakfast. Like
Sure.
chicken eggs or whatever. And
Sure.
It's like she even said like they're not. She's trying to continue
not fertilized,
but they're not fertilized or something. Like there was like a little caveat in there to leave it open. I know it's been kind of speculated.
Well, she didn't seem too worried about it.
She wasn't counting them. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she knew about it, but I don't think she missed it.
Well, she definitely. She there was one more where she hugged it tighter. I think at the end. So
yeah. Right.
I did like how Mando was kind of more like parental role in this. Taking it away and stuff. So that was kind of fun.
All right, Case.
Yeah, well, real quick, it did seem interesting. Overall, Mando has, in all of these episodes, been more of like a father role, telling Baby Yoda, the child, what to do, what not to do, and like mind your manners, that kind of stuff, was just pretty funny. But no, Passenger, I did like it. It was a lot of fun, very spooky for me because of the spiders. It's a lot like a Lord of the Rings or Chamber of Secrets thing. Like this is like, of course, everything has to have giant spider type creatures just to freak me out. But I like the fact that they were included. Obviously we have seen them from Rebels, but other aspects of Legends, they pop up, which is always really cool when that happens. I was totally expecting. I think all of us were thinking that was Ilum, and so I kept waiting for like crystals to pop up somewhere, but I don't know how that would have factored into the plot, but it didn't happen, so never mind. So it was what planet was that called again? I can't even remember what they called that. Moss something or
I'll have to look it up again. But it's actually
the other thing, but
it's actually the same planet as in the first episode. That he
that's right.
That he captures that bounty.
That's right.
Mithril. Same planet.
Well, nonetheless, it was cool. I did enjoy the episode. It was, it didn't, just like the first episode, didn't really further the plot too much. But honestly, I'm just kind of at a place now where I should be expecting that. I feel like we should be expecting these episodes, not just like first season. Each episode probably won't further the story a whole lot. Every few episodes we may get that one that pushes it a little further until we get to the end, and the last two will really cap it all off and just be incredible. So Passenger kind of fell in line with that. So I wasn't too shocked that it wasn't like a large arc or anything like that. I do think it is setting up, just like the first episode. It's just leaving little nuggets of characters that could return. Little glimpses of how Mando could progress as a character, and maybe where his story could go in this season. Because on the surface, it's definitely, as he says every single time he meets somebody, I'm on a quest. I've been quested. He has to just say it to somebody, just as if they wonder what he's doing there. So it's, that's obviously what's progressing him through this, but there's obviously going to be something else to come out of it. And I think Passenger just a little bit showed us maybe with the Rebel pilots, what could happen, maybe, which is fun. That's fun to speculate on. And it's, of course, really cool to see Dave Filoni again. I think he's getting pretty comfortable now in front of the camera. I think he's really enjoying it. So that was a lot of fun. And, Frog Lady was cool. She is interesting. I really enjoyed seeing her actually do something at the end, like, when she whipped her bag back to her. When the spider started to hatch, she quickly got dressed and and then how she started running and hopping. I thought that was pretty neat. Mm-hmm. So the technology of that was really, really cool. It was, for me, it was a solid episode. It was fun. It was when the spiders started happening, I got me on the edge of my seat just because of that. But it was okay. It was good. Pretty solid for me.
Yeah, I would, of course, I co-host on the Mandalorian podcast, and we of course break down very much details of there. So my big reveal or big review of that thing is on there. But I was saying on there that my first reaction was, and of course I watched it a couple times. This is the least favorite episode for me of the entire series. I think back to last season, and there was, I would say, at first I was thinking that the Gunslinger one, which was I think the Tatooine one last season, was maybe my least favorite then. But then when I rewatched that again this year, after I watched the first episode of this season, I actually really enjoyed it. Mainly parts of it, just because we got reintroduced to a lot of stuff on Tatooine again, and of course we got introduced to, and her name escapes me, the hangar.
Peli Motto?
Peli.
Amy Sedaris. That's just how
Amy Sedaris.
I forget her Star Wars name.
You definitely, Casey, I hear your point where regardless of the plot in each episode, there is something usually that's driving the story forward, right? I just didn't feel like that. I just didn't see that in this episode. That's it. That's the only thing. I mean, I get it that there's probably going to be some connection to the New Republic down the road. I think that's why that was in here. But I think back to episode 2 of last season, which again was kind of like this, where it was that middle story between finding the child and delivering the child. Right? You had this episode where he runs into problems with the Jawas who just tear apart his ship, and he's got to get the egg. You talk about eggs, but in that episode, though, I think what really drove that episode forward was we see the child use the Force, right, for the first time, right? So that really turned that episode upside down. You kind of suspected it, but you didn't really know. So that's what I was kind of waiting for this. Like this whole time I was watching this episode, I was getting to the point like, okay, so what's the big reveal, or what's the big twist that's going to actually add to the story? And if it's the TIE fighter or the X-Wing pilots, then okay, great, but not so great, in my opinion. So, is that what you were thinking, Cody, when you watched it?
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, like, realizing that this show follows a formula that season 1 had really helps to set expectations. Maybe my expectations were a bit higher than they should have been. We just saw Boba Fett as the huge reveal at the end of episode 1. And then when I saw that we were staying on Tatooine, I was like, oh, awesome. And honestly, we didn't really talk much about the opening sequence. The opening sequence I thought was great.
Yes.
And kind of set my expectations even a little bit more. I was like, oh, wow, like we might actually get Boba Fett. Maybe he's like hired these little thugs and then he's going to come in or whatever. Or he's like tracking Din because Din's speeder broke or whatever. Like I was kind of either setting myself up or the show wanted me to think that Boba Fett could pop up at any moment. And then it was just like the opposite of that. We even went back to, the cantina and stuff. And so I was like, oh, surely Boba Fett's going to walk into the cantina.
Yeah.
It's going to become like this. I was still thinking of the Western vibes the previous episode had. So, I mean, that was what I was thinking. And then, I think my expectations were just a bit maybe too high. But I think you kind of had a good point of like, if you took out chapter, I get the chapters and episode numbers confused. Chapter 10 was episode 2. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if you took out chapter 10, like you said, the only thing was the New Republic involvement. I mean, all you need to know is that his ship broke, and then you go right to the next one and you miss nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
In my mind, I think, the most critique you could say is the writing of this episode. I think was lacking in moving the show forward. You're thinking about like a show this big, it's gotten so big because of season 1. Our expectations are higher now because of season 1. Season 1 was able to be smaller, more isolated stories, but now there are a lot of eyes on it. And I think, you want them to deliver. And luckily we get to talk about how they were able to deliver in other episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Anything else you want to add, Case, before we go?
I think overall, because as I was kind of at the end of this episode, I was thinking about it. I don't know if we're almost in general, like the public is being a little too unfair because we're so used to nowadays, especially with streaming shows like Stranger Things, each episode to just be so impactful and there to be a clear defining huge arc. Whereas this show, I feel like, is liking to older network shows where each episode was very isolated and had its own, like it would rarely connect, if not a little bit, to a larger arc. And I think early seasons of Supernatural, if people out there have watched that, or even early seasons of Smallville, tons of, I think a lot of shows like that kind of throughout the, not to say every show did that, but there was, to me, at least as a viewer growing up, I feel like that was kind of a norm. I didn't watch a lot of dramas, serial dramas growing up, but there were a lot of shows back then. I feel like that each episode didn't necessarily connect to one another in large detail, or even to a larger arc in large detail, but maybe every now and then would kind of hint and progress a little forward. I feel like this show is kind of, I don't know if they're meaning to, but to me, it's almost, it's doing that in a sense, to where I just need to, in a way, just shift my perspective of what this show is. So it's almost like what you said, Cody, I'm almost holding it to too high of expectation of, well, each episode I do feel like each episode should progress it a lot further than what it's doing. But I'm saying that almost as if that's what they're meaning to do and they're failing at it. They may not mean to do that. They may mean to be writing and executing these episodes exactly how they are. Each one is just a fun adventure, and and then you always get a cool thing at the end that kind of pushes it forward a little bit. That's a little bit of an Easter egg of sorts. So, if I kind of keep that in mind moving forward, then I may be pleasantly surprised if one episode, is just incredibly impactful. But again, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I feel like that's how it is, and I probably should be thinking of it that way in a sense, but I don't know.
Well, I think you're, comparing it to like Smallville, because I'm a huge fan of Smallville too. But like, I think any of those shows, even like today with Arrow or Flash or anything like that, it's like you have 22 episodes though, right? These seasons are still 20 episodes long.
Yeah.
And we've talked about them. These somewhat are referred to throwaway episodes, right? Kind of, you said it, Cody. You can go from 9 to 11 and probably not miss anything, right? So I just think that in 8 episodes, which is each one of these seasons, I feel like, again, I know it's difficult, but I just feel like it should be that you can't miss an episode.
Right.
Like, it's so connected in a way that each one has something that matters. Now, again, I do think maybe at some point there could be something that you look back in this episode and say, oh, look, remember those X-Wing pilots, or, maybe there's something on that planet that, he has to go back to get, I don't know. But I just think that now, you think back to, I also want to throw this aspect out there too, because I think it's important. When you've got a guy like Jon Favreau that is actually not only a brilliant filmmaker, but a massive Star Wars fan, right? So just imagine one of us writing an episode of this, what would we want to see in there, right? So I got to feel like he's also writing for himself. He's like, I know we have to do this, but man, wouldn't it be cool to somehow get these spiders in this episode, right? So, or how do we get these spiders in this season? So it's like, I feel like that's what's happening. And Filoni's obviously just as big as a fan too. And, and you see that from season 1, right? The Jawas, reintroducing us to the Jawas and what happens in the actual Sandcrawler. And then you've got, the Trandoshans, right, that are hunting him. There's all these little nuggets, R5, and you got just dropping all these different, but there was still that story. And I think, you can go back and I think you can make that argument too, that there was aspects of last season that maybe weren't that important, but I feel like every episode last season really drove the story. And this is the only one I felt like that did. The only one I felt like that didn't. That's the only one. That's why I thought at least of it. But let's shift into this past weekend where we got Chapter 11, The Heiress, and right off the bat, this is the one I think a lot of us have been waiting for, something like this. Now, I got to say that going into it, I did temper my expectations, and I didn't want to not get underwhelmed, right? So, it's funny because the thumbnail, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the thumbnail on Disney Plus is the one we see from the trailer, right? The picture of Sasha Banks, or Mercedes, I think is her real name, with the black robe, right, standing there on Trask. So right away, there's going to be something with her, something with, maybe a man, obviously finding Mandalorians. Is she a Mandalorian? Blah, blah, blah. So, Cody, back to you, I guess. Just give me your first impressions of watching this episode.
I love this episode. So this really is a big contrast for me from Chapter 10 to Chapter 11. It does almost feel like the show is repeating that form. Episode 3 of Season 1 was awesome. I thought, it had a lot of action, had a lot of interesting scenes of Mando fighting stormtroopers, and then the Mandalorians saving the day at the end. This kind of repeats some of that, and in a great way. And we get the huge reveal of Bo-Katan and the Night Owls, which I'm assuming it's, her Night Owls that are with her. Sasha Banks, and then the other actor, which I don't know his name. But I don't know. I just thought it was awesome. I thought it was really cool. to see them taking on stormtroopers again. Bit of a one of those sort of like adventure, like, hey, help me and I'll help you kind of thing. But I think in this way it paid off, maybe because I was so excited about Bo-Katan, and that it's like this adventure felt bigger than the last one or other ones. I don't know if it's just because of the characters, but I just thought it was great.
Yeah. Case?
A lot of fun. Definitely. Yeah, I think the title of the Heiress got me really excited, waiting for Bo-Katan, and then just again, it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, she takes the helmet off. Okay, it's Katie Sackhoff. Okay, everything's true. I'm just once again, everything's true. But because like even like what was it, like a year ago, maybe earlier this year, when she tweeted like she just had like the most defining moment of her career. And everybody was like, "Are you in Mando season 2?" And she didn't say anything. But so it's like, but it's still like just seeing it, man. It was so amazing. I'm just glad they got her, and because she obviously can play the role, and then to see it jump out like that was pretty crazy cool. And definitely, I mean, even the way the Mandos moved and fought, they must have learned some new tricks, because the way, like the technology wise, because it did feel better than the first season, Cody, like we were talking about, like the way they flew in and just fought. It just felt a lot more, I guess maybe big budget is the way to say it, like in terms of, it didn't seem like they were, I don't know, didn't seem as like they were on rigs. Like it just felt very, very high quality production, like how they executed those scenes. Really cool. And then just, I mean, it felt like classic Star Wars. You have them fighting stormtroopers, infiltrating, actually even more specific, it felt like classic Rebels, like infiltrating a ship, taking it over with just a few people, taking over the entire ship, and dealing with crazy obstacles as they come. And I love in this episode in general had other great cameos, of other TV actors, which was really cool. I think it was I guess he was a captain, whatever. The main guy in the bridge was Bosch, but he's on tons of other TV. I think he was in Transformers. Like it was just cool seeing these other actors. And in general,
he's in Lost too.
Lost, he's in Supernatural. He's in everything, but. Like the casting for the season so far of all the secondary characters is much better. We've already mentioned the Gunslinger episode a couple times. It's like I wish they had better casting choices last season for those secondary characters, because
I think they wanted to get Jake Gyllenhaal because the concept art looks just like Jake Gyllenhaal for that Gunslinger, and then they just got a guy that looks a lot like him.
We don't have young Jake Gyllenhaal anymore, so who do we get? But because the two actors who played the pilots of that cruiser were really good. Like for what little they were given, I love them. They were fantastic. And then they had the other one of these other actors that was in the cargo bay. Like he's from Conan, so it's just funny, like all the different people that they gotten into this, and it was definitely a lot of fun. For a while though, I will say, like kept thinking like, why do they need Mando for this? That they're doing pretty well on their own. Until he's like throwing his own grenades and doing all this other stuff. Because for a while I was wondering why they needed him specifically to just one other person just to make sure it goes well, I guess. But nonetheless, it was really cool action. So definitely, I do definitely think this episode, more so than the previous one, gives a larger glimpse of what could possibly happen. It just kind of made me think again about, it's like classic Filoni, where he starts to kind of develop a whole other concept from within. Like Rebels started off with just a small scale crew, and then all of a sudden it just becomes very impactful to the canon, with starting the rebellion and everything. But then it goes back down to being a very intimate show at the very end. So like this season makes me start to think, okay, well, it could definitely be bigger than what we're getting, or again, with all these rumors, it could definitely be a start of a spinoff show, so who knows?
There's a lot of dramatic irony with Bo-Katan's character, and just her saying that she's after the Darksaber. Obviously, us as the audience knows that Gideon has it, but none of our main characters have seen the Darksaber, right? In person. Well, I mean, obviously Bo-Katan has. We don't know what happened between her and Gideon, but the fact that she survived, you know, makes, and you know, she didn't lose a limb or anything. You're like, okay, I mean, what did she just, you know, lose a battle and run away? Or you know, there's a lot of interesting stuff that I think it tees up.
No, this definitely is great. Like you could definitely tell Filoni's he brought the context of all this dialogue. Like the first time, anytime it was mentioned, Darksaber was her saying it. You know, so it's like we all, like you said, we obviously know what that is, but people watching are like, what the? I guess the Darksaber is the thing that Gideon had in the previous episode,
right?
And so, like this episode definitely sets up. It tells all the fans out there, the more mainstream, you know, the live action side of Star Wars fans that don't watch the shows. This episode tells them, hey, there's a lot of history here. You know, it's great at telling them to go back and watch and figure all this stuff out. Like she mentioned Darksabers. Okay, so then they're making connections and they're going to go hopefully watch Clone Wars and Rebels before next week. But same thing with just mentioning Ahsoka. Like you just mentioned Ahsoka as like the first introduction of her into the show. You know, I think that was a great move as opposed to just showing her as being her first introduction, because now you just get a name. So it's very mysterious. So now people will hopefully go and research it and figure out this whole bunch of episodes with her. And now there'll be a crazy amount of hype, you know, with the new set of fans going into next week, because I don't know, I think it's definitely setting up a lot of hype. You know, it's kind of hard to keep your expectations down going into next week. So if they don't show Ahsoka next week, then, you know, I will be one of those that feels a little gypped. But
well, we'll get there. We'll get there later with that.
I'll give them 2 episodes.
And
then I'll feel cheated.
We'll get there.
She'll be at the very end of next episode. Like I said, she's like the Luke Skywalker. I think I said that like last episode, but
So he's gonna hand her Baby Yoda, and she's gonna toss Baby Yoda over her shoulder.
But you know, going back to the comparisons, I think with these past 2 chapters, I think, you know, with this episode, even though there was a mission, a side mission in a sense, right? Something that Mando had to be a part of in order to further the story. I think this, in this sense, it was brilliantly done because of Bo-Katan and because of her. I mean, just that conversation they had sitting down, you know, at the cantina there, where she's like, you know, we're from Mandalore. You know, like we're trying to win our homeworld back and put a Mandalore back. I mean, that right there just opens his world. Now, we kind of know this already, right? If you're a big Star Wars fan like we are, we know Rebels, we know the Clone Wars. We've kind of done our research to know what has happened to Mandalore. But Mando, he's in the dark. He has no idea. I mean, he even says it. He's like, he has no idea about Mandalore. He's been told things that seem like they're not true. You know, he has no idea when asked about the Jedi. He's just going by the word of the armorer that told him, you need to get this child back to the Jedi. So I think that's what makes this episode so good too, is that it introduces so much more opportunity for him. And even though he's still focused on his mission, you know, this has opened a different direction for the show as well as our main character here. So I think that's what I think, you know, was a little bit lacking in chapter 10. But, you know, look, I understand what has to happen to get us there, but there's just so much more opened up, I think, in this episode. That's why I really gravitated toward it, because again, not only just the reveal of Bo-Katan, which a lot of us are fans of, but the reason she's there, Darksaber, going back into to win back Mandalore. I mean, there's so much history there now that we need answers to, like what happened from when we saw her last, which was holding the Darksaber up, to now, you know, where she is now here on Trask, trying to gather weapons up for a big war. So, so what did quick question too, I wanted to get your all's opinions about when she talked about Mando being a child of the Watch, like what was your first reaction or thought to that, Cody?
Well, I think you were mentioning how her character involvement was just perfect, not only because we're fans and we're interested, but she served a purpose for Din that I thought was really cool, right? Like she's got this history and lore that we're interested in as viewers, and if you watch Clone Wars or Rebels, but now she's also serving as somebody that can challenge Din. I think we talked a bit about this on like predictions and stuff, and we've seen it already with how Din reacted to Cobb Vanth taking his helmet off. You know, she takes her helmet off, they all take their helmets off, and he's like, whoa, you guys aren't Mandalorians. Where'd you get that armor? He keeps doing that, you know, where'd you get that armor? And she's like, hold up, buddy. I was born on Mandalore. Like, she kind of puts him in his place. And then you're kind of stuck thinking, kind of like, you know, we probably already know, but Din is seeing his worldview challenged, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He says that, you know, the Watch, which I'm assuming they're obviously referring to Death Watch, that has maybe since been rebranded, taking the death out of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
lose the
knowing...
death. Just yeah,
lose the death. It's cleaner. Knowing what you know about Bo-Katan, you know that she was once a part of Death Watch, and then she has even changed her way, you know,
right,
her own way. So it's like, I think it's this really interesting thing where you think, okay, Din is probably going to be challenged on the way, and is the way he's learned growing up the right way, the only way? You know, we already know that it's not, according to her and these other Mandalorians, you know, but is he going to change his outlook, or is he going to stick to how he was raised? Because you almost are kind of led to believe that the armorer and the Watch that he grew up in may have taught him wrong, or taught him a way that isn't really, you know, this idea of him saying that Mandalore is cursed, and she's like, well, don't believe everything that you hear. And it's this kind of thing where it's like she's saying that, you know, united Mandalorians are stronger or something like that. And the fact that they're all splintered apart, you're kind of wondering, okay, why are they splintered? Obviously, they lost and the Empire was after them, but Bo-Katan seems to want to rally people together. That was always kind of like her thing. But yeah.
Guys?
No, I thought it was really interesting. It definitely made me think of Mando in a different light, in a sense of like how character-wise, how young he is and how naive he is in a sense, and how fresh, you know, it's like, because we this whole time up until this point, we just think he's, you know, the baddest Mandalorian out there, and he's, you know, seen it all and done it all, and he has all this history with all these other bounty hunters and stuff, just like almost like he basically is like a better version of Boba Fett that we haven't seen before, almost, you know. That's how I feel like a lot of us equated him to, but all of a sudden he's like a newbie in a way, like to, like you were kind of saying earlier, Dave, like to the world and to the galaxy. Obviously we knew he doesn't know who the Jedi are or what they are, but you know, we all kind of understand that anyways, because it's a big galaxy. I mean, the armorer, you know, to your point, maybe Cody, is, you know, has she always known the truth but cling to disbelief? You think that, but you also think, well, you know, she also doesn't quite know who the Jedi are either. She just at a race, you know. So again, it's a large galaxy, so we're not quite sure what they are aware of and what they aren't. But again, it just kind of made me think of Mando as this small little person now, and this, you know, just like any hero. You know, he now is almost like a true hero. Like he's, you know, he has this world, he's stepping into a new world, and so now it's all going to be challenged, and how he has to accept what this new world is. So he very much now feels like this hero that we can all follow in, you know, learning something new, and coming, you know, he's going to come into his own now. You know, he's going to have to accept one path or the other. So I love that dynamic now. I think it does add a lot to him as a character. Whereas going into the season, we were all thinking like, what's his story going to be? What's his character like? And we had all these guesses and speculations, but now it seems a little more clear as to possibly at least what his choices are. You know, I think we kind of talked on that, but now it seems more clear on what it is. So it was cool. It was a cool reveal. I loved all the history, like you said, that we are getting now, because, you know, we are like probably how many years from where we last saw Bo? Like almost like 10, 11 years.
It's about 9-10 years.
9 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that is a huge, you think it, without saying that out loud, you think it hasn't been a whole lot of time, but it's definitely a good chunk of time to try to teach. I don't think we're going to learn, maybe not all those answers through this season, but it's going to come somewhere, and I'm excited to figure out what happens.
Yeah. Well, two things real fast before we get to our main topic. One is, it's funny you say that because Bo-Katan, Bo-Katan is, I think I've read speculation of her age, right? And she should be in her early 50s, technically. And Katie Sackhoff is actually 40, right? Now, she's in great shape. She looks young. She doesn't look like she's aged at all. But that's a good point, because you could go back and tell that story with her because she is younger.
Yeah, for sure.
So depending on the reaction, which has been overwhelmingly positive, it sounds like, you very much could be seeing a series of her going forward. So, and I think you the other one is, the overall, I think, story of, man, that's a great point you made about him. Yes, seeming like he's almost, as a character, taking a step back, especially on the knowledge aspect. Like, we started this journey with him last season where we didn't know anything about him, and now he's learning that he doesn't really even know anything about himself either. I feel like, he's only known one thing, and it doesn't seem like it's maybe the right thing. And that's a interesting turn in this series. And I think, we'll talk about here in a minute, where we think it's going to go from now on. Right before we do that, though, I want to just hit on a couple little news things that releases that, just to remind everybody about. Tomorrow, which is actually right now, it's out now that we put the the holiday special is on Disney Plus right now.
All right,
the Lego holiday special. So, do what?
Happy Life Day.
Happy Life Day. Yeah, nice. I didn't read the review, but I saw an article, and I didn't click on it because I wanted to just watch it myself. But the headline of the article was, "This is the closest thing to what we're going to get as episode 10." So,
oh my gosh,
I don't know what that means, but I mean, apparently it's it's a continuation of episode 9, but there is some time travel involved in this, so who knows? But
that's funny.
Of course, it's not really canon, right? But I think they're acting like it could be canon.
Sure, go for it.
And then 2 days from then, which is Tuesday on this release, but on Thursday the 19th, we get the drop of the VR game Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. I'm pumped about that. I'm gonna get that, and I'm gonna start playing it. In fact, I need to plan some time for us, because I want to go in the studio and do it, so we can actually have some space to roam around.
We need to go to a big field. We're just going to go to the soccer field.
I actually thought about that too. Like, why haven't I thought about going outside to do this?
Yeah,
and map a whole acre or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that works or not, but
yeah, what's the limit?
Yeah, but I'm pumped about that. So those things are coming out. Of course, I started listening to Certain Point of View for The Empire Strikes Back. That dropped last week. Very interesting stories. Did you get either of you start that book yet?
No, not yet.
No,
haven't yet.
Both of you read the first one though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I did it on Audible.
Yeah, it's really good, and this one's got the same kind of feeling. Although this one is very long, audio wise, Cody. It's I think it's over like 17 and a half hours.
Look how.
Yeah, so it's 40 big stories. Very interesting. I've just through the first few of them. Like the first one was I guess the Imperial that's in charge of all the Viper droids, sending them out into the galaxy. and she compares it to seeing the world through the Vipers. It's pretty neat. Then you got the perspective of one of the Tauntauns. You got the perspective of the Wampa. You got the guy that I can't remember his name might be Chase. Maybe he's the guy that walks through Han and Leia when they're fighting in the hallway.
Yeah, just doing his job.
Just doing his job. It's really neat.
Yeah, just please, not in the hallway.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm looking forward to getting to obviously the Yoda part, and Boba Fett's got a story in there and stuff like that. So go check that out. That's out. I think Casey, or do you think you posted in our chat? The first 8 chapters are actually out right now for Light of the Jedi. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah. Del Rey, they have been putting out a chapter here and there. And now up to this point, so yeah, we've now gotten the first 8 chapters, which is incredible. Charles Soule's novel. I'm going to dive into that as soon as I can.
Yes, that novel actually drops in complete chapters January 5th. So I don't know how many chapters there are, but that's a lot.
I mean, honestly, this might like 20, 25 chapters usually on average, maybe 25-ish chapters.
This could be like a third of the book.
This is pretty good. Yeah, probably third or fourth of the book. That's pretty incredible, I think. That they
very much that. So. Yeah, very much so. So just a couple of things, just a couple of those announcements there. Of course, you got some comics coming out once a week. Also, Bounty Hunters, Dr. Aphra, Star Wars Invader are still the ongoing series going there on Wednesdays. So, all right, let's get back to discussing our main stuff here, which is really after now that we've talked about chapter 10 and 11, things seem to be heading into maybe not necessarily a big different direction right now, but I feel like with chapter 11 especially, Mando's world has gotten a lot bigger as far as what's happening out there with Mandalorians. So just a quick recap. Favreau seems like he's writing every one of these episodes. He's written the first 3. I think he's actually the head writer on all of these. But you do have a couple different directors, right? You have Favreau directed chapter 9. You had actually Peyton Reed, who just directed chapter 10, who is the director of Ant-Man. You had Bryce Dallas Howard direct this past episode. She's getting a ton of praise right now.
She did a great job. We kind of skipped over that. Honestly, when I saw that it was her name, I was surprised in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
It felt reminiscent of chapter 6 of season 1 to me. So when I got done with the episode, I thought maybe Rick Famuyiwa had directed it, just because it had some of those hallway fight scenes. And when I saw that it was Bryce Dallas Howard, I was like, wow, she did a phenomenal job. Very true.
Very true. So now going into this weekend, chapter 12, the list I'm seeing is that it is actually directed by Carl Weathers, making his Mandalorian directorial debut. You've got next week's chapter 13 directed by Dave Filoni. Chapter 14 has not been listed, but there is an episode out there that Robert Rodriguez has directed. Rick Famuyiwa has been listed for chapter 15, and then chapter 16, the season finale, has not been listed. I'm guessing it probably is going to be Favreau, but I'll listen to y'all's opinions here. So based on that, because there is that question, when is Ahsoka going to show up, right? You got to kind of think that it's going to be Filoni's episode, right? But what could happen? So let's just start with this question. What do you think is going to happen, speculation-wise, going into this chapter? And then ultimately, how does what we've seen change your opinion on what's going to happen the rest of the season, Cody?
Well, I feel like, because we've heard from Carl Weathers in an interview that he's directing, and based on the amount of limited footage we've gotten in trailers and TV spots, I think that the next chapter is going to be the limited footage that we haven't yet seen. in one of the trailers and a few of the TV spots. So that is actually a lot of stuff on Navarro. Mando out of his ship, greeting Grief and Kara. He's got Baby Yoda at that time in that shot. And then there is the whole sort of, I guess maybe escape chase scene where you've got Grief, Kara, and then the Mithril, the blue alien from episode 1 is randomly there.
Yeah.
No idea how he gets involved in this, but I'm assuming this is where I don't know why. He just got the information he needed. You need to go find this Jedi. Her name's Ahsoka Tano. She's on Corvus, I guess a new planet. I kind of should have been on Wikipedia. It hadn't popped up before. Aside from being a name of a ship in Battlefront
2. Yep. Yeah. Battlefront 2. Yep. That's right.
That's kind of interesting. Like, did they name the ship after the planet, or I don't know?
Maybe he's a famous rock star or something.
Yeah, who knows? But so for whatever reason, I think it's going to be a bit of a diversion episode, but maybe it's one of those things where he wants to get his crew back before going to see the Jedi. Like, hey, I'm about to go meet a Jedi.
Yeah, I need help.
And I don't like Mandalorians. I might need some backup. Yeah. Or it was kind of messed up, and the Mon Calamari kind of haphazardly put it together. So maybe it's kind of like another.
Oh yeah, true.
It's breaking down. I need to fuel up. Let's go by Navarro, and then
the chords are like all the place.
Shenanigans happen on Navarro, and but I really think the next episode we're gonna get the first appearance of Moff Gideon. I feel like if we are gonna take a diversion, and maybe this whole season has a bit of a, I mean, my speculation is that it's a bit of an Empire Strikes Back approach. And I think we need to see the Empire. They just got their ship jacked. He seemed to know or assume the same pirates that have attacked them before.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't just say Mandalorians, because you would think that Imperial officers would know what Mandalorians look like if it was the same attacks that they've had. So I kind of have a feeling that Moff Gideon is, I don't know why he's coming back to Navarro, but that might be where we finally see him kind of show his true power, the Darksaber.
Interesting. Case?
I do think this episode, it could go a different number of ways. I don't think Ahsoka will be like, maybe at the very end it's like legitimately. I do think it could be a cliffhanger thing. Who knows? Like, I don't know how. Like, once they get to that planet, Clovis, right? Is that Clovis? Clovis is a character from Star Wars.
Clovis, yeah.
Clovis is that's how I kept hearing when they said that name. I was like, holy crap! But not different thing. How hard is it going to be to find Ahsoka once they get there? So, are they gonna? Is this episode going to be the payoff episode to get to Ahsoka? So that's what I'm curious about. So like you said, Cody, maybe it will be 2 episodes. I definitely think it'll be Floaty's episode, but at what point? Anyways, this episode will be, probably that chase scene. It could be Moff Gideon. I don't know if I'm leaning towards the Darksaber, because I think that's a separate payoff, maybe. Where Mando, that realization. Well, I don't know if I have to watch the episode again. I don't know if Mando heard necessarily the conversation Bo-Katan had with that Imperial captain. I don't know if he heard the mention of Darksaber, and then because he obviously hasn't seen it yet, but I wonder if he heard what she said, and then he all of a sudden sees Gideon with one. I wonder if he would make that connection.
Right.
But and then all of a sudden think like, I need to take that and give it to Bo-Katan. I don't know. So I don't know if that would happen quite yet, but Gideon appearance would definitely be something to keep pushing the stakes forward. Because I'm thinking, like, why wouldn't Gideon just either keep bringing troops to Navarro to claim it for the Empire? Because he definitely was defeated, so why wouldn't he come back even stronger just to, basically revenge in a sense, on that planet? So I'm curious to know what the state of Navarro is now, because like that limited footage we saw of Grief and Kara coming out and meeting Mando. I mean, everything seems very peaceful in that one little shot. They're very happy to see him. It doesn't seem like they're distressed or beaten down. Like Grief's got a cool new outfit, so things seem to be going well. So Yeah, I'm curious why the Empire isn't still a problem on Navarro, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be peaceful for long because there will be some kind of chase. I do hope it's a good payoff episode to get to Ahsoka. I hope we don't have to wait too long. Like I hope it's not, chapter 13. I hope we get Ahsoka early on in that episode. If we don't get her as a cliffhanger in this one, but I'm not sure how that would work out, to be honest. So it seems like a lot of story to cover. But but I do like the fact that maybe he does need to get a team because obviously he keeps getting in horrible situations without people helping him out of situations. So that's probably the reason why. I guess he needs a ship and he needs a crew, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's. I just think it's safe to say there's no one that there's no way you're going to let someone else direct the appearance of Ahsoka than Dave Filoni. So I think it's a big safe bet that she'll show up in chapter 13. And I think I'm going with you, Cody. I like that idea that he's got to go to Navarro for some reason to. Maybe it is fix his ship. Maybe he's like, I can't. The closest system I can get to is Navarro, and I can't go any further until I get my ship fixed. And I'm. It's funny because I think I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, let's not wreck the ship anymore. Let's just get it right, and he can let him be able to fly around in it because that thing or else improve the shields on it or something so it doesn't get as damaged. But I think the big question too, which is kind of maybe flying under the radar, is what's with Mithril? Because there's got to be a reason why they get him out or they free him. Like I feel like he has to know something.
Well, what happens to bounties when you put him in carbonite, like he did, or once they get him out of carbonite, like? Did they go wherever, like with Jabba, whoever had the bounty on him?
Yeah, whoever's the bounty, it gets delivered to them, and then they can do whatever they want with them because it's it's an underground type thing. Now, bounties are also, I think, can be legalized, right? So if it could be a governmental bounty where he gets imprisoned. So I'm assuming he maybe got imprisoned, and they go free him, and that's why they're chasing after them in the transport, the prisoner transport.
I think you're giving him too much credit. I think he's just gets looped into it and he's just going to be a comedic side. He might have something to do with it, but I think he's more so because it's Horatio Sands as the actor. He's a comedian. So I think it's mostly going to be for a side comedic character. And I think he's already there. I don't think they necessarily free him. I think he's paid his debt. I think his bounty's paid up. And maybe Grief Karga's employed him. He needed some extra hands, and so he just started freeing people. So I think he's just around and just kind of gets sucked into an adventure.
Yeah. I think the other theory that I have. Yeah, I think the other theory that I have about him going to Navarro, especially right now, is to go question the armor about these. About the things that he was taught when he was younger, and does she know anything about these other Mandalorians and what happened to the Mandalore? And so because as far as we know, she's still there, right? She didn't leave when this whole thing went down at the end of last season. And that's still a question too, and I keep wanting to pose this question over to Story Group, but like, what is the time frame between chapters 8 and 9? Like, I still don't get a feeling of how long it's been. At first I thought maybe it might be a couple months, but now I don't know. Maybe it might only be a couple weeks.
We might get that answer in this one. They might say something like, "Hey, it's been 17 weeks since we've seen you." It might be something like that.
Well, at least enough time for Grief to grow a he had a mustache. Now he's got like a goatee.
Yeah, it's gray. It's gray a little bit too.
Yeah,
it's gray. So it's different for different people. Some people grow a goatee overnight. Some people, take a little time.
Last I saw you was 2 months ago.
I do feel like it's been some time because this whole time I have been thinking that at least there's been enough time with the child and Mando to develop that they can understand each other better. Like Mando can freely just talk to the child, and we get a sense that he understands what Mando is saying, and vice versa. Like Mando is able to pick up on all the child's cues and communication in a way, not necessarily speak his language, but just understand what he's doing and trying to communicate. So I feel like it's been, maybe a year, but maybe less.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a year, but
yeah,
otherwise it may not be that long. So who knows?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's been 2 days.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I just saw you yesterday.
Yeah.
So big question too, I think, for the remainder of the season is, was your expectation that the child was going to linger as part of the series for a while? And if so, has that changed now based on all this new information and the introduction of Bo-Katan and possibly introduction, obviously, of Ahsoka and others? Like, is the storyline of the child, like, do you feel like now that is going to shorten, or do you think it's still going to be an extended part of the series?
Meaning his mission with the child?
Yes. Or even just the presence of the child.
Well, you have to think of what is his quest, as he calls it. Like, it's just to take him to the Jedi. So I'm not quite sure if Mando's gonna, once he realizes exactly who and what the Jedi are, like, it's not a race of people. It's just almost like Mandalorian.
Or
it's
the fact
almost
that
like
they're not even really around anymore.
Yeah, so he may not. I don't know if he'll necessarily. I don't know, think of a word like evolve his quest to say, okay, I guess I have to take him to his race, his actual species. Because if he's going to do that, then who knows if he'll ever complete that. Mm-hmm. I would actually love it if we do find those answers of Yoda's species, but I'm curious. I wouldn't be surprised if Mando just considers his quest done once he meets Ahsoka and kind of learns more about the Jedi, and then realizes, well, there isn't even a quest to perform because the Jedi are extinct. Ahsoka isn't even it. She may not at this point still consider herself to be a Jedi. She could still very much be apart from that order. So he may think, well, there is no quest, so we'll just keep doing. We'll jump to this other mission now, or something, like, to put it very mildly. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I feel like one quest, one mission, like in a lot of things, evolves and leads to something else. I think he will, once he goes to Ahsoka, I think she will say, I'm not a Jedi. Or, they can bond a bit because she had issues with the Jedi and their way. And now Mando is being challenged on what the way is, his Mandalorian way. So I think there'll be this sort of bonding moment where it may even help Mando to grow a bit from his current thinking of even his quest and whatnot. I would love it if somebody like Ahsoka can kind of tell him, maybe Mando will still want to take the child somewhere else after Ahsoka, another Jedi, a Luke, Ezra, whatever. But it would be nice if somebody tells him, that Baby Yoda is, or the child is probably better off with you, if that's the truth, and that's kind of a question, because he's very violent, and what is he teaching this child, and all these things that maybe come up over the course of this show. But I do feel like we may not get the answers of where the child's going to end up eventually, but I think that he will stay with Din through the course of the show, whether or not Din tries to help rally Mandalorians, fight Moff Gideon, fight remnants of stormtroopers. I don't think it'll be like season 2 or 3, we drop off Baby Yoda, and now I'm going to go liberate Mandalore. I think it's going to be something that is just continually happening, and maybe the series finale is him either finding the Yoda species or him having this realization, this self-revelation of, the child's home is with Din. And I think that's something that Din hasn't really thought about or come to grips with, if that is the best thing for him.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think I'm torn. I'm actually really torn between when after my first thought, honestly, after I watched this last episode, was, okay, that's where the series is eventually going to go. I think this series is going to eventually go to freeing Mandalore and establishing Mandalorians back on Mandalore. And the big battle between driving the Empire fully out of the Outer Rim, in a sense, right? And again, going back to the meetup with the New Republic, like I think that is how that. I think, Casey, you talked about that. I think also I do agree that I think will play a major role in him being able to somewhat recruit help from the New Republic, as well as it seems like it could be the New Republic and Mandalorians, just helping each other fight off the rest of the Empire. So, I think that story is getting bigger, just very similar to what Rebels did. So it made me start questioning, how could the child be a part of that? And and I mentioned this actually on the Mandalore podcast, is part of me felt like, okay, Ahsoka is going to actually take the child, and that story is going to continue in her series. And then Mando is going to continue with his journey of actually finding more about what the Mandalorians are and becoming a true Mandalorian, right? So, because if you think about the title, right, the Mandalorian, he's actually not Mandalorian in a sense, right? He's not, wasn't born Mandalorian. He was a foundling. He's discovered that he hasn't been told and raised the way that like Bo-Katan was raised. So does he actually become a true Mandalorian by joining that fight and establishing the Mandalorian people back on Mandalore? I think that could ultimately be what the story is about in the end. So it's hard for me to figure out where this child, because I was one that actually thought the child wasn't going to last past season 1, to be honest. But when he got quested this journey or whatever, it kind of made it apparent that it was probably going to last the entire series. So where does he fall in that? That's where I'm kind of struggling with it. But I do like what you're saying, Cody. That he's better off with Din is probably a good story to center around, and I think that there's some truth into that, probably.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily that it is a issue, really, to call it, of how Baby Yoda fits into it all, because I think it is all this father-son mentality. Like, his role is what it currently is. He is the child of the Mandalorian, and he's, he'll have his moments where he'll maybe use the Force in a cool way every now and then, but I think it will not end up becoming a goal of the show to find a place for the child. Is he going to go with this? There may be a question if he's going to go with Ahsoka maybe, or stay with Din. But if Din then gets wrapped up into this war on Mandalore or whatever it may be, I think Baby Yoda will still be a part of the picture. He'll just keep him in a safe place, I think, or he'll have his own little moment in that story. But because it was always the fear of like season 1, it was like the focus is on the child. Everybody talks about the child. Well, I think this episode has definitely shifted that focus, at least for me, and definitively saying this is going to be about Din and his struggle with what it is to be Mandalorian. And the child will only fit into that story in as much as it'll just kind of feel this family theme, and that it's not all about necessarily a creed. Like, it's just, so whatever that result is, I think it'll become clear, and the child will just naturally fall into that story. It won't necessarily become a central figure towards the end. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, it's you'd have to think that they may. I don't know if they're going to make a big deal about his species. Like it might be a quick conversation of like maybe it's actually known in the Star Wars universe. Because I don't think anybody's really in canon now has even asked the question to Yoda, like, what are you? So it's like, Ahsoka may see, obviously she'll see the child and say, maybe she'll even say, I've only known of two other, or maybe if she doesn't know who Yaddle is, I've only known of one other species, and that was Yoda. And there's all the history books say is that they're extinct, so it might be as simple as that. And then It's done, then now it becomes, okay, well, then what do I do with them?
Where did he come from?
Yeah, so that if we find that out this season, that's another big question. So I don't know if that's going to be this season or not. Maybe again, that might be a quick thing with Moff Gideon. Maybe he knows and he'll say it, and then it'll be done. So I don't think, at least I don't hope, that they linger too much on the child and his questions as like the climax of the show. I think it's going to be it'll fall into place and serve Mando's larger story.
Perhaps a way to like prolong that and not have to give some answers, but continue the journey and get to a bit of the Mandalorians reuniting. And I think it's been mentioned or rumored or touched on is that we haven't really talked a lot about Moff Gideon's intentions. You just kind of brought that up a little bit. I think really where this is going, and I don't know if it's this season or into this season, into the third season, Moff Gideon's probably going to get the child. I think he's going to get taken from Din, and I think that'll obviously challenge Din in a lot different way. He might revert to his old way, revenge, right, out for vengeance. It'll really give us time to see Mando alone in some episodes, and I think that, like this episode, he kind of stashed him because sometimes you just kind of have to put Baby Yoda in a corner so you can have a really interesting fight scene. And that might be a way. Yeah, never put. Well, yeah, that might be a way. He literally is in the corner right there. That might be a way for the show to make it story-wise make sense. If Moff Gideon takes him, now Mando might have to unite with Bo-Katan and the Night Owls, and maybe call on other allies that he's gathering for a much larger battle. Now that might not be this season. They might have a smaller scale battle, but that may be where eventually it's going, so that we can have a fight for Mandalore where Din doesn't have to have Baby Yoda in a satchel and shooting a bunch of people and putting him in danger. Because maybe the reason why Din joins the fight, now it's more personal for him.
That's awesome.
He doesn't care about Darksaber. He doesn't care about Mandalore, but he cares about Baby Yoda.
I like that a lot. Cool. Yeah, that's a great theory because that's true. I haven't thought about Gideon, who was by far the central villain in all of this whole series. So even though he hasn't really been involved that much, but I think his story is going to get bigger and definitely be a bigger part of this series as it gets going. So, that's great. That's good speculations. Anything else? Any final predictions at all? I guess one last thing to talk about, Case, is that you mentioned earlier. Is all the stuff all the rumors out there true? I mean, is
I think so.
What else is really left? Ahsoka, and then
I think Sabine and Rex.
Rex.
At least the most credible rumors. I don't know if I even believe the Ezra Thrawn. That just seems too big. That seems way too big. So I definitely think, but it's like, again, like we're now in the issue of like, there's so many things they've already set up. Well, one big thing with Boba Fett, it's like, when and how are they going to bring it back? Maybe it won't be that big of a deal in this season. I can imagine they'll hold off till next season, because that's 2 full seasons where we got 2 glimpses. It's like, come on, just do it. But I hate to keep throwing shade.
That he has his own series coming.
Yeah, so
which is going to be the explanation.
If that's the case, that would be cool. But anyways, it's like, because it would be a good setup for a Rex Boba Fett thing. It's like just a cool call out to the prequels. Like, I think there's so much potential there. I'm sure they have to have thought of it if they haven't already written it at this point, and shot it obviously. But So yeah, I think that's the only concern still that I have is just because this episode was 30 minutes, so it's like we're back into that short episodes, like not a lot of time. But again, I have to get in the mindset of these episodes probably won't be that large in scale, but every few episodes or so will be, but time will tell.
Yeah. Final thoughts, predictions, Cody?
We're gonna get a lightsaber battle.
Oh, okay.
I think that it's definitely happening.
So with
what's on
Ahsoka and Gideon?
I mean, it's the obvious answer that it's got to be Ahsoka and Gideon, but I've got a personal speculation that maybe Ahsoka's involvement doesn't have to take over the story. She could be in an episode where they meet him. She could maybe come back and save the day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somehow her lightsaber gets knocked out of her hand.
She tosses
it up for a quick fight.
The cool solo gun toss.
Yeah.
So how many episodes do you think Ahsoka's in, Cody?
I'll go with 2.
Case.
I gotta think of how many are left.
There's 5 left.
5 left? Oh, it's 8. That's right. Probably 2 at the minimum, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's more. I think she could be a good mentor for Mando in this season, which would maybe last a few episodes. But
man, if she stuck around for a few episodes, that would be.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We probably haven't seen anything from the last. 5, 6, 7, 8. That hasn't been on any trailers.
No, totally agree. Yeah. They are keeping all that locked down for sure. For sure. All right. Well, that will do it. And we will be back every week to talk about this stuff because I think it's just going to get better and better, more exciting. There's going to be a lot more reveals. Like we just said, there is so much that we haven't seen. Because I do think you're right. I think this next episode might fulfill every shot that we've seen in the trailer. That means we've got 4 episodes completely unseen. So, all right. So we'll be back next week. Check out the Mandalore podcast coming out every Monday morning when we talk. I'm with Martin Donison over there talking in depth about the episodes. But come back here at Inside the Force. Each week we'll talk about Mandalorian and all the other Star Wars news and happenings going on in our favorite galaxy. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Cody.
Thanks, guys. This is the way.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Cottingham. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. May the Force be with you.